1921. In the final years of the First World War, the Russian Empire was coming to its end. It had been devastated by revolution and finally transformed into the first communist country in the world. In the years following the revolution, non-Russian nations that lived under the House of Romanov sought to secure their long-lost independence. One of these was Ukraine. From 1917 until 1921, the Ukrainians struggled to build and secure an independent country, fighting against the new regime, against their neighbors in the West, and amongst themselves. When in February 1917, the revolution had overthrown the monarchy in Russia, and the event had echoed throughout the entire empire. In Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, the Central Rada, or the Central Council, had taken over control of the country, which on June 23, 1917, proclaimed the free Ukrainian National Republic without severing its connections with the Russian state. The nation began to awake. However, keeping the vast territory of Ukraine under control was a difficult task, and the country rapidly slid into anarchy. The collapse of the Russian forces in Galicia made matters even worse. On November 7, 1917, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, staged an armed insurrection in Petrograd, today known as St. Petersburg, and this became the uprising that changed the country for good. 3 days after this, together with the aid from Rada, the Bolsheviks attacked the army staff headquarters in Kyiv, forcing them to leave the city. However, contrary to Lenin's plans, control over Ukraine was quickly taken over by the Central Rada. The Bolsheviks were not popular in Ukraine, having no more than 5,000 party members in the country. Most of their supporters were industrial workers, Russians, and Jews from the Donetsk region. These men were antagonistic to the Ukrainian national movement. The Bolsheviks confronted Rada right from the start. On December 17, 1917, after failing to grab control over the All-Ukrainian Congress of Soviets, the Bolsheviks left Kyiv for Kharkiv and proclaimed the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Already at that point, the Bolshevik troops from Russia were preparing for the invasion of Ukraine. The war was about to start. The invasion army of 30,000 men entered Ukraine on December 25, 1917. Led by Vladimir Antonov Ovchinko, it comprised regulars of the Army of Soviet Russia and local Red Guards from eastern Ukraine. In response to the invasion, Central Rada proclaimed an independent Ukrainian state. Ukraine was defended by Free Cossack units, workers' battalions, the Hidemaka Battalion, comprising military school students, and the Galician Bukovinian Battalion of Sich Riflemen, which was made up of former Austrian prisoners of war. The strength of the Rada's forces was not more than 15,000 men. Ukrainian forces proved inadequate in stopping the invasion. One after another, towns in eastern Ukraine were falling into the hands of the Bolshevik troops. By the end of January, they had occupied Donbas and left Bank Ukraine and were approaching the city of Kyiv itself. The Central Rada sent a unit of around 500 volunteers to meet the invasion force, the student battalion of Sich Riflemen, and a detachment of the Hidemaka Battalion faced the enemy in the Battle of Kruty on January 29, 1918. Both sides had armored trains at the scene, but on different tracks. The Bolshevik troops quickly disembarked from their train carriages and started running towards the young Ukrainian soldiers, who jumped into a makeshift trench system and opened fire with their rifles and Maxim machine guns. The Bolshevik wave was driven back, but the inexperienced students thought that they were in a full-blown retreat, so they jumped out of their trenches and began to give chase. At this point, the next wave of Bolsheviks charged out from their train, and vicious hand-to-hand fighting ensued.